Hey YouTube, metalskinstudios here. Welcome to my second episode of Fucktardry Knows No Bounds. Now, let's take a look at Mr. Christian Nazi Fucktard here. Try and fuck with someone way out of his pay grade.
Well, greetings everyone, and welcome back to our Standing Watch program. This week the news reported about a new book by Stephen Dawkins.
Who? Stephen Hawking or Richard Dawkins?
The world's most famous scientist, the one who's supposed to be the most intelligent person on the face of the earth.
Oh, that guy.
And in this book he continues his story, his idea, his concept that there doesn't have to be a God to explain your and my existence or the existence of the universe or this earth.
Noted theoretical physicist and cosmologist Stephen Hawking is trending after he dismissed the idea of heaven as a fairy story. In an upcoming interview with The Guardian, Hawking said, quote, "There is no heaven or afterlife. That is a fairy story for people afraid of the dark." He has come under fire from religious circles before, most recently after his book, The Grand Design, argued that God did not create the universe and that the Big Bang was a natural event that could have created everything from nothing.
God did not create the universe, says Stephen Hawking. In The Grand Design, the best-selling book, author concludes, because his law, such as gravity...
Gravity, you fucking retard! Gravity! Have you ever heard of fucking gravity? Gravity! Gravity!
The universe can and will create itself from nothing. Goes on to say, spontaneous creation is the reason there is something, rather than nothing, why the universe exists, why we exist. It's not necessary, he says, to invoke God to set the universe going. So his point is that the universe pretty much has always existed and created itself from nothing.
Not exactly, but go on.
It's interesting that I just picked up a book a couple of weeks ago.
Well, isn't that special?
Which I finished reading.
Get the fuck out of here!
And this book is written by the most famous atheist.
Who? Harris? Hitchens? Dawkins? Who?
However, he turned to theism. No! It's called There Is No God, and then the word no is crossed out and the word a is put on top of it.
Wow! That is so fucking clever! Oh my fuck!
And it's written by Anthony Flew. And what I found remarkable is how he explains from a scientific standpoint
What?
how he had to do away with his beliefs in atheism and how he had to replace it with a concept, a belief in God. Now, of course, he is still at the very beginning of his journey when it comes to understanding God, and so there are many comments he makes in that regard which I wouldn't agree with.
Yeah, sucks when the guy you're quoting doesn't agree with you.
However, it is very interesting how he explains from a scientific, evidentiary standpoint
What?
why there has to be a God. And he is challenging Mr. Dawkins. He is actually discussing his concepts in his book and rejecting them.
Anthony Flew is a British philosopher who has long been a champion of atheism, and he has, as the questioner remarks, announced in his old age that he has been converted to a form of deism, not out-and-out theism, a form of deism where he thinks there probably is some kind of mysterious intelligence at the root of the universe. Many great people have thought the same.
I'd like to read to you a few excerpts from this book.
Let the quote mining begin!
He is, for instance, saying on page 119,
Page 119, my favorite.
first, it is a hard fact that we live in a universe with certain laws and constants, and life would not have been possible if some of these laws and constants had been different. He goes on to say, nobody asks where the laws of physics come from. But even the most atheistic scientist accepts as an act of faith, notice this, as an act of faith,
bullshit alert,
the existence of a law-like order in nature that is at least in part comprehensible to us.
That what had convinced him was the idea of intelligent design, and specifically the book of Michael Behe. Well, that doesn't argue for the surviving powers that Antony Flew once had as an intellectual. No serious thinker could possibly be positively impressed by the arguments of the so-called intelligent design creationists.
And then he talks about how he actually began his journey away from atheism. What was the cause for that? He says, when I first met the Big Bang theory as an atheist, it seemed to me the theory made a big difference, because it suggested that the universe had a beginning, and that the first sentence in Genesis, quote, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, was related to an event in the universe.
There may be good reasons for believing in a God, and if there are any, I would expect them to come from possibly modern physics, from cosmology, from the observation that, as some people claim, the laws and constants of the universe are too finely tuned to be an accident. That would not be a wholly disreputable reason for believing in some form of supernatural deity. I think there's a very good argument against it, and I've developed much of my chapter 4 to, as I think, refuting that argument. If Antony Flew had said that, then I think we could have a serious argument with him. But what he actually said was that he was convinced by intelligent design in biology. And anybody who knows anything about biology will immediately see that that is ridiculous.
And then he relates another interesting observation, and you have to ask yourself a question. Here is somebody like Mr. Hawking, who has apparently one of the greatest IQs in the world.
When I last saw Antony Flew, he didn't endear himself to me because he actually went about promulgating the legend that Darwin himself had a deathbed conversion. And that really is a ridiculous story, which was long, long ago disposed of by the Darwin family. And it led me to somewhat discount other things that Antony Flew is now saying. He once was a great philosopher. It's very sad.
How come that he cannot understand what here Mr. Flew is talking about? He says, think for a moment of a marble table in front of you. Do you think that given 1 trillion years or infinite time, this table could suddenly or gradually become conscious?
No.
Aware of its surroundings, aware of its identity the way you are. In other words, he's talking about the mystery of life.
No, he's talking about this.
Little puppet made of pine, wake. The gift of life is thine. What they can't do these days.
He goes on to say, if you accept the fact that there are laws,
Yes, there are laws.
then something must impose that regularity on the universe.
Ugh. Dude.
What agent or agents brings this about?
Could it be Satan?
How is it that you actually exist, that you are a thinking being? He goes on to say, it is simply inconceivable that this would or could happen.
What's that, Sparky?
Undifferentiated matter, and here we include energy, at some point became alive, then conscious, then conceptually proficient. than an I. Get the fuck out of here! And the same goes for any kind of matter. Once you understand the nature of matter, of mass energy, you realize that by its very nature it could never become aware.
That seems most implausible.
Never think, never say I. But the atheist's
You talking to me?
position is that, at some point in the history of the universe, the impossible and the inconceivable took place.
What's that, Sparky?
But returning to our table, we see why this is simply laughable. The table has none of the properties of being conscious, and given infinite time, it cannot acquire such properties. Even if one subscribes to some far-fetched scenario of the origin of life.
Yeah, but a ghost that makes matter appear by thinking it, yeah, that makes a lot more fucking sense.
One could have take leave of one's senses to suggest that given certain conditions, a piece of marble could produce concepts. So the point is, he is saying those who believe that the universe came into being out of nothing by itself, that it creates itself, have lost their senses.
Ghost, magic, think, matter, appear. You're fucking poning yourself, you dumb cunt. So many fucktards. So little time.